we ready? Okay. Hit it. This meeting of the Oak Park City Council is called to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Clerk Ed Norris, would you call the roll?
Mayor McClellan.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Radner.
Here.
Councilmember Byrne.
Here.
Councilmember Ritt.
He's walking in right now.
He said he waved his hand.
Yeah, he waved.
Councilmember White.
Here.
Okay. Motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any changes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next item is the consent agenda. These are routine items that are presented as one item without discussion. Are there any that you would like to have dropped from this? No. A is regular council meeting minutes of January 3rd, 2018. B, request to cancel the regularly scheduled Zoning Board of Appeals meeting of January 23rd. C, public safety activity summary report for 2017. D, licenses, new and renewals as submitted for January 2016. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. We don't have any visiting elected officials this time or special presentations. So moving down to the city manager section, 15A. City Manager Tungate.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to call our Finance Director, Sandra Crawford, to the podium to detail 15A through C.
15A. Deficit.
Sorry.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, City Manager Tungate. Before you are three resolutions for the deficit elimination plan for the following funds: the 45th District Court Fund, the Mental Health Court Grant Fund, and the Retiree Healthcare Court Fund. As you may recall, last council meeting when the auditors were here, Raymond Robson, Mark Kettner, he indicated that there were 6 funds that had deficit balances. Out of the 6, only the 3 did the state require us to actually submit a deficit elimination plan, and that is because there are no deferred revenues coming in to cover those expenditures. So for the fiscal year 17-18, what is needed is money to be transferred out of the general fund to cover these deficits for these 3 funds.
Okay.
And for the district court fund, it was strictly, they were at a deficit at the end of fiscal year 16-17 to the tune of $51,753. The mental health court grant fund was in a deficit of $2,054, and then the retiree health court fund was in a deficit of $43,110 for the fiscal year of 16-17, and that was verified by our auditors.
Madam Mayor, may I?
Can they be done as one more?
I don't think they can be done as one, do you? Separate resolutions?
Separate, got it.
May I just pose a question?
City Manager Tungate. You have the floor.
Director Crawford, just for a little bit better explanation,
Okay.
I think the majority of council members understand this, if not all, but I do think it's important to note that, council members, that these are items that in previous years were taken care of through the final quarter budgetary amendments. And in this case, we did not do that. However, these budget deficits have been, they're overcome. They're on paper. I know that sounds a little strange, but they are over budget on paper. And this is, in my opinion, strictly a formality to prove to the state that that actually has been done.
Yes.
Do we have, do we need a motion first? No? Is there a motion to pass a resolution adopting a deficit elimination plan for the 45th District Court Fund.
So moved.
We need a second.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Discussion or questions for the Finance Manager?
I have a question.
Mayor Pro Tem Radner.
Are we going to have a deficit next year in light of our settlement? Or do you not know?
Well, for this fiscal year, for 17-18, no, the court budget was not passed with a deficit. I believe the amount was, we adopted a budget of $2,059,354 for the 17-18 fiscal year for the district court, and that would include revenues and expenditures to cover that. So their revenues equal their expenditures, so there are no deficits scheduled for 17-18 for the district court fund.
City Manager Tunge.
That's correct, and I wanted to just elaborate a little bit more for Mayor Pro Tem Radner, because I think you may be referencing the court agreement that we reached. The court agreement that we reached, you will note that in the city manager recommended budget for 17-18, I recommended a budget to you that was about $150,000 or so less than the one that the court had asked for.
Right.
As part of the settlement agreement, we agreed to settle the case, the court litigation case, only if we accepted the budget that they had offered, and that's the numbers that Director Crawford just presented to you. So I would concur with her. I don't see, based on the operating numbers that we're seeing, they're actually doing a little bit better than we thought they might do. I don't want to say that too loudly, because obviously, knock on wood, we don't have any issues, but for all intents and purposes, I don't see any reason why we can't maintain the current break-even status.
Yes.
Okay. Specifically, when you were just speaking a moment ago about how historically how we dealt with the deficit in the last quarter, that is no longer going to be an issue for us, is it?
Well, I certainly hope not.
Foreseeably.
Well, especially because I think you're referencing some of the new fee structure.
Right.
Certainly, civil infractions will play a role in that. To what extent, we don't have any way to really gauge that because we have no history with it. Typically, in a budget situation, you'll want to look at least 3 years of historical trends. So we'll have a much better idea of that once the first quarter is over and so forth. But we believe, based on our own numbers, our own estimates, which have really not a lot of science behind them, that that will improve their budget scenario quite a bit.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Councilmember Burns.
Well, it's not a question, it's more of a comment, I believe. I believe at the last city council meeting, when I was asking questions about the deficits, my understanding was that, for example, the court mental health, the grant, the money that we receive and spend, we won't receive that grant money until next year. And
And what Mark was indicating last meeting was that because we only book them 60 days after, they can be counted in that fiscal year. When they come after that, then it's in the next fiscal year for that. But for this particular mental health court grant, we got what we were getting for fiscal years 16, 17. And so basically, I met with Heather Ruffles, who's the overseer of this grant for the court, on Friday of last week, and she indicated that there originally were things that was told to them that they could account for, and then at the end, they couldn't account for them anymore, meaning that I don't know if the rules changed or what. So we've kind of sat down and have strategically come up with a way that we know this beforehand as opposed to after the fact when the books are closed.
yeah, it's been my experience since I've been on the council that the court has a tendency to overinflate their revenues. And we usually find out at the year end that
They
they
need
weren't
'em.
realized.
That
I
is
think that's been
correct.
one of our big issues with the court. So I'm okay with this.
City Manager Tunge.
Councilmember Burns, that's true. And one thing I would also just remind you is that the budget style, the layout of their budget that you've seen all the way up until this coming year was the same, and it'll be changing as of the next budget year. And in the new budget style, one of the upgrades that they've concurred with as part of this settlement was that we accounted for actual revenues and actual expenditures.
Great.
So, and I don't want to downplay the budgets in the past, certainly, but the new budgets, in my view, and I think Director Crawford shares that view, will be a much clearer, more in reality version of what is actually going on at the court.
Okay.
Any other questions? Councilmember Weiss.
Is it typical to fund any deficit from the court from the general fund?
I'm sorry,
Is it typical to do this to, if there's like a deficit, to fund it through the general fund?
yes, there is no other fund that we could get to give the money to.
Okay,
That
so
is
this is
correct.
basically what we have to do. in
That
order-
is correct.
Okay.
There are no other funds that can give
Any
it
other
any money.
question?
May I just to
City Manager Tungate.
Councilmember Weiss, just to elaborate a little bit more on that, the reason for that is while we share the court with 3 other municipal entities, we are what's called the fiduciary funding unit of the court, meaning if all else fails, the City of Oak Park's general fund is relied upon to make up the difference.
And that's been our issue with them ever since I've been on council.
Are we ready to vote then? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Burns.
Yes.
Mayor McCullough.
Yes?
Mayor Pro Tem Radner.
Yes.
Councilmember Rich.
Yes.
Councilmember Weiss.
Yes.
Okay, item 15B, resolution adopting a deficit elimination plan for the Mental Health Court Grant Fund. Is there a motion to adopt this resolution?
So moved?
Second?
Okay, Councilmember Burns made the motion, Councilmember Weiss seconded. Are there questions on this one? Councilmember Weiss?
So if I'm looking at this correctly, it's showing a 0 balance.
Yes, at the end of June
Okay,
30th
yeah.
of this fiscal year.
So what was it, why was it necessary to transfer in $2,054?
Because the position at July 1st of 2017 at the top is the negative.
Okay, so even though it came out even, because of where it's at in July is why we need to transfer that money?
That is correct.
And this is mandated from the state?
That is correct.
Further questions? Roll call then, please.
Mayor McCullough.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Radner.
Yes.
Councilmember Rich.
Yes.
Councilmember Weiss.
Yes.
Councilmember Burns.
Yes.
Motion carried. Item 15C, resolution adopting a deficit elimination plan for the Retiree Healthcare Court Fund. Is there a motion?
So moved?
That's Councilmember Weiss, and is there a second?
That was Burns.
Burns. Thank you.
Second?
From Councilmember Weiss. There we go. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Radner.
Yes.
Councilmember Rich. Yes. Councilmember Weiss.
Yes.
Councilmember Burns.
Yes.
Mayor McCullough.
Yes. Motion carried.
Item 15D, I'm going to actually turn this over to our city attorney, who worked with Director Maroney on this one.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council. As we just discussed in our special meeting just prior to this regular meeting, the City of Oak Park has received a grant from the Michigan Department of Transportation and SIMCOG to complete the 9-mile redesign project. As part of that project, we're required to obtain 18 easement agreements on parcels of land that run along 9 Mile. One of those easements is actually on property currently owned by the City of Oak Park. So what you have before you at item 15D is a proposed resolution, an easement agreement essentially approving a permanent sidewalk easement along the city-owned parcel. Once City Council approves this resolution, we will be recording it with the Oakland County Register of Deeds so that we have a record of the easement recorded properly. If you have any questions, I can address any questions you may have.
Okay, is there a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved?
Councilmember Burns, and is there a second?
Second?
Councilmember Weiss. Discussion or questions about this? Councilmember Weiss.
Just a general question. Forgive me if this is a dumb question, but in going through the permanent sidewalk easement proposal, I just noticed the language was very gendered. I don't know if this is just like a generic, but like known by all men. I don't know if that's just like a normal, if it's just pulled from that or.
Ancient.
That is, I'm going to say legalese. That is just the language that is used when recording deeds. You're looking at the first paragraph of the permanent sidewalk easement itself. That is, I will say, ancient language that's basically saying everyone be on notice, or everyone notice that this is what this document, and then the language regarding the property parcel number and the property itself, that there is an easement or an encumbrance on this property.
All right, and so then like when it says did each for himself and like things, that's just like legalese?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any discussion? Nope, we're ready to vote.
Yes. Councilmember Weiss.
Yes.
Councilmember Byrd.
Yes.
Mayor Furlong.
Yes,
Mayor Pro Tem Radner.
Yes.
motion carried.
And then 15E, Assistant City Manager Yi, take it away.
Thank you. Attached are proposals from OHM Advisors for a contract amendment for the 9 Mile Road TAP Grant project and preliminary engineering for the Sherman and Seneca Streets pocket parks. The amendment is an increase of $25,745 for additional work that includes the design of additional median islands, decorative concrete crosswalks, signal modification at McLean, and McLean to add a pedestrian signal, irrigation, electrical, and street closures for the 9 Mile Road TAP Grant project. The itemized breakdown is attached for the additional work performed. Also attached is a proposal for the preliminary engineering for the pocket parks at Seneca and Sherman Streets. The total amount for the design development, construction documents, and bidding is an hourly, not-to-exceed amount of $64,000. It is recommended that the amendment request from OHM Advisors for the 9 Mile Road TAP Grant project be approved for the amount of $25,745. It is further recommended that the proposal for the preliminary engineering for the pocket parks at Seneca and Sherman also be approved for the hourly not-to-exceed amount of $64,000. Funding is available in the Major Street Fund.
Okay, is there a motion for this?
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Weiss, seconded by Councilmember Burns. I just have a question. Where are the additional median islands?
There are, there were 8 total, and unfortunately, I don't have them off the top exactly where they're at. I can definitely
Is this
report.
in 9 Mile?
They're on 9 Mile Road,
On
yes.
9 Mile Road.
So they'll be on 9 Mile Road. Anywhere where we don't have left turn conflicts, we try to put a median crosswalk island to allow for safe travel across 9 Mile Road.
And are they landscaped?
Most of them will not have landscaping. It's going to be a kind of a harsh environment. They will, I believe that they have some, like maybe a tree or something like that, but not like, they won't be irrigated, so they won't have like that type of landscaping in them.
Because I thought at the consultant level, they wanted Oak Park and the islands to sort of signify that we're in an oaky, parky area.
Okay, no, I confirmed with Director Maroney that they will not have landscape, and I think part of it is going to be sight distance and things like that. You want to be able to see cars and pedestrians when you're crossing them. The purpose of them is for safe pedestrian travel.
Any other questions? Councilmember Weiss.
I noticed when reading the Amendment of Understanding that part of the reason why we want to allocate this through a local contract without use of federal funding is because of federal funding for requirements for pocket parks. Was there an issue with that? Because that's partially why we didn't use TAP grant funding for it, according to this.
I'm sorry, if you don't mind, where were you referring to?
Sure, it's it's in the second page, Amendment Understanding, in the third paragraph. So it'd be completed through local contract without the use of federal funding so that the work would be separate from the federally funded TAP grant project to avoid federal requirements for the planned pocket parks.
Yes, that is for the pocket parks, exactly. So the pocket parks, we aren't going to use federal funding on them, and there are different requirements for federal funding as far as materials that you have to use. Like if we wanted something specific, like a specific bench or some sort of specific thing, federal funding does not allow you to call for specific items. You have to bid it out, and contractors have a right to use substitutions and things like that. So we wanted the pocket parks to be separate, and we can design them the way we want them, use the materials that we want, and put in there the features and things that we want to use.
Thank you. So just for more control of the design.
Correct.
Any other questions? Are we ready to vote then? We don't have a motion, right? We do, okay.
Councilmember Wise.
Yes.
Councilmember Burns.
Yes.
Mayor McCullough.
Yes?
Mayor Pro Tem Wagner.
Yes.
Councilmember Rich.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carried.
Madam Mayor, members of council, that completes the city manager report for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is call to the audience. Please give us your name and address and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Mindy Domke. I actually live in Ferndale, 1618 West Hazelhurst. I'm here on behalf of the Ferndale Friends paper. We're putting together the Oak Park 2018 City Guide and Business Directory. I think you all have a copy, so I'm just here to give a short report. We've had a lot of excitement in the city with business owners wanting to take part and buy ad space in this paper, which is exciting because part of the proceeds are going to go to the Corridor Improvement Authority for the city. So I just wanted to introduce myself. Again, my name is Mindy Domke. If you know anybody who would like to participate in this paper, we're hoping it's going to come out the first or second week in March. We're doing 18,000 copies, so there's going to be a copy for every home in Oak Park. And I'm going to leave some of my business cards as well for all of you. So if you have anybody that you want to send to us, we'll be more than happy to help them create an ad to put in this publication. And one more thing, just some of the things that this paper is going to include. It's a 2018 calendar with all of the Oak Park festivals included, city contact information, an Oak Park business directory. So every business that has a current business license will be included in this business directory. Interviews with important Oak Park residents. There's an article about the 9 Mile redesign, an article for Detroit Custom Coaches, and also an article on Greenfield Plaza. And we're working on more.
We are very glad you decided to move to Oak Park.
Thank you
Your
so much.
offices are in Oak Park now.
What?
Your offices
Yes, the
are in
Ferndale
Oak
Friends
Park.
office is in Oak Park, yep.
Mindy, we're happy to have you. Thank you so very much.
Thank
and
you
we
very
look
much.
forward to your card.
Thank you.
Come on.
Joyce Bannon, 10611 Troy. When I first read this deficit, I didn't read it all the way through, so I'm glad to know it was just the courts. Now, I'm not sure why, how come, or what for. The city is responsible for all court costs? That was, I was dumbfounded when it was more was going over on that. So that was my big question. Why are we in a deficit for the courts? Well, okay, that's fine. I didn't know that because that's a whole different form because I know all 4 cities all go into the courthouse. Also, there was a comment made on television about a month ago about you cannot fight City Hall. I hope we don't have to fight City Hall, but I hope City Hall listens to the residents when they have something to say. We don't want to fight them. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Quiet, the rest of you. All right. I just wanted to let you know that I get emails all the time talking about how wonderful our staff is and how somebody went out of their way. The last email I got was about a public safety officer who went for breakfast at the Red Olive in Ferndale and bought breakfast for a family anonymously. And that family took the time to contact me and email me and thank the officer, whoever he is, for the free breakfast and how impressed she was with our Public Safety Department and their outreach. So thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Radner.
Good night, everybody.
Councilmember Burns.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out. Please be conscious of the cold weather, take care of your pets, and check in on the elderly. Thank you, and have a good night.
Councilmember Weiss.
So I have a couple quick announcements. One, I just wanted to announce that the Arts and Cultural Diversity Commission wrote a grant to the Detroit Institute of Arts for their Inside Out program, and we did receive that grant. And so this summer, spring or summer, there will be...
Mid-April to mid-July.
Thank you. Mid-April through mid-July, we will have artwork from the DIA, reproductions of artwork displayed around the city. We're still working on the site locations of that, so that's not confirmed, but that is something to look forward to coming up. And it is something that the city did back in, I believe, 2013. Is that correct? Okay. And then the other announcement that I have is that the Recreation Department has an event coming up on January 28th at 3 p.m. at Oak Park High School. It's a one-woman show on Harriet Tubman, so it's a great way to kick off Black History Month, and that is free to the public. So again, that's 3 p.m. at the Oak Park High School Auditorium on the
If I just might
28th.
jump in, people
Yeah.
were raving about this. This is a phenomenal opportunity to see really quality event for free. Bring your family and friends.
Yeah, so please come. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Councilmember Rich.
Thank you. Have a good night.
There being no further business to come before this council, this meeting is adjourned.